Hi everyone, welcome back to Crypto Code Season 2, Episode 3, and we're live with ICN.live. Super excited to be here. My name is Tom. I'm your host for every week, and I've been in the crypto space for around 5 years now. Worked with
Hello.
Hello.
Again, just talk to the mic.
I think we're live.
No. Really?
Yes. Yeah.
No, there's no camera. It's fine.
No, just now I turned it on.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
I think we're live. Yeah.
On now.
Cool, yeah, but been in crypto for 5 years, worked with over 1,000 projects and worked with some of the biggest companies within the space like Animoca, Sui, Boba, XDC, many others. And very excited to have a very special guest with us today with Mr. Ian, and the CEO of CoinRoutes. Would love a brief introduction of yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Ian Wiseberger, CEO and founder of CoinRoutes. We're a large institutional trading platform for cryptocurrency. We've been around since 2017. We serve some of the largest hedge funds and brokers in the space, and more recently have kind of gone down market to individual traders. It's an interesting time to be in crypto with some of the recent events. I think the flash crash has been all over the news. I've been commenting on it, as have a lot of other people. But I think we'd love to kind of get into that and some more market structure type stuff on the show.
100%. And as you said, there has been so much turmoil over the past week in terms of the crypto market. There's also been a lot of controversy on X and everywhere. So super excited to get into all of that. So first off, in terms of agenda for today, what we're going to look at first off is the macroeconomic landscape in terms of what's happening across the world and across the crypto markets. I look at some of the top headlines. I think everyone has seen the controversy between Binance and Coinbase, and we'll be diving into that. And yeah, finding out a bit more about your views in terms of what's happening within crypto before we go into the UAE and the GCC, the wider GCC, in terms of it's such an exciting region, and we get a lot of exciting kind of insights by being here. And I'm excited to hear what your experience has been like. I've been here for around 3 years. I'm not sure how long you've been around, and it's a cool place to be. So we're excited to be talking to you guys about it today. Cool. So first off, let's dive into the most important topic of the week. I think an hour after we went live last week, everything crashed. The biggest liquidation in crypto history. What was your take on it?
Yeah.
What do you think triggered it?
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. So there's a couple different things at play. I think in reality, those kind of market shocks can happen at any time, but the way it happened at Friday after the close of the US equity markets meant that the liquidity was already thin. What does that mean? That means that there's less people placing bids and offers, less people trading, and the weekends are notoriously volatile in crypto anyway, or after when the New York Stock Exchange closes, basically when the American liquidity is gone and before Asia wakes up, is actually a really thin time. So if you imagine like 5 p.m., 6 p.m., Asia doesn't, East Coast time, New York, Asia doesn't wake up until 9 a.m. That gap is actually a very, very illiquid part of the day. And what that means is the price is able to move in extreme manners in those windows of time. So it was kind of a coordination of a bunch of different factors. But ultimately, what I would advise traders to do now is to understand what leverage means. If you're trading perps, you need to understand what your liquidation price is, right? You need to understand if you're trading on 3x leverage and the price crashes over 33%, like you're going to be wiped out. However, a lot of people were trading on 3x leverage using Bitcoin as collateral. Bitcoin crashed over 10%. That means on 3x leverage they would be wiped out at much less than 30% price move of that asset. And then you had some of these assets crashing 80%. So I think honestly the exchanges probably need to do a better job at communicating these things to their investors, to their users. I don't want to call it consumer protection because that sounds a bit like government oversight, and I don't even think it's that. I think just the platforms that actually have better features, ultimately in the end run, will win, and I think that we're seeing that happening now.
And as you mentioned, I'm so glad I wasn't ever trading at the time. Obviously horrible time to be a trader. A lot of people are $20 billion in liquidations, biggest crash, ever, since the biggest crash we've seen since FTX. A lot of people are calling foul play. what do you think? Do you think there was kind of some manipulation happening?
So I'll say one thing. I think, look, the guy who opened up the 200 million short or whatever on Hyperliquid 30 minutes before the news clearly like was an insider. Like, let's be honest. Like, there's what is the statistical likelihood that he just timed that perfectly right? Like, almost zero. That guy clearly knew it was happening. Does that mean that the whole thing was set up? Absolutely not. It means that there was a couple people that got lucky off this. But ultimately, like, if you look at the combination of factors, as I said, thin liquidity because US was closed and Asia hadn't opened, basically a weekend trading session because it was Friday night, people were already off work, large traders weren't there. Like, there just wasn't enough liquidity to stabilize the market, and it was just kind of a perfect storm of all of these factors.
I know we mentioned already, I mean, Bitcoin crashed, everything crashed. Some altcoins did absolutely terribly. I mean, we saw like Atom go to near zero. Like, unlike anything, it's completely unprecedented, right? Like, we've barely seen anything
so
like
that
this
was, I think, I wouldn't call it foul play, but I think that was just huge negligence on the exchange's part where that happened. I think the crash of Bitcoin from 125 to maybe somewhere around 108 was legitimate. On some exchanges, you saw it go as low as 102. That was like too much. That was an overcorrection, and I think there could have been guardrails for that. But ultimately, like, yeah, this thing could fall 10% in minutes. Like, that has happened. That's fine. The 80% fall of Atom on some exchanges, I think that was poor management on parts of some of the exchanges. And so if you dig into how different exchanges do it, an exchange like Bybit has a smoothing function where basically they say the mark price, which is the price at which you'll get liquidated, is made up of multiple factors, and it actually lags behind by a certain time. So that instead of like going like that and immediately back up, you kind of like go like that. And so you ultimately, like, you wouldn't liquidate certain people. Whereas Binance didn't necessarily have that protection, and that's why ultimately they gave some money back. But I think if you look at the way that they're giving the money back, it's not enough to compensate because people are still got stopped out of their positions that ultimately they would have. And if you look at it, it's recovered quite a bit, right? So those traders are not actually being made whole, right? So I think a lot of exchanges are already taking a look at that, and it's going to get better, hopefully, from this.
100%. And I think Binance obviously have committed a lot of funds to try and recover for this, but I mean, not nearly enough. And there's been a lot more controversy around Binance this week, and we'll go into that in a second. But before we go into that, I mean, I think something that we did see is decentralized exchanges. People are very excited about them, and they held up very well. Like, we saw Hype perform much better than most centralized exchanges over the course of the week. Obviously, you have a very unique position within the industry on this. What's your take on it?
I mean, look, so we did a total volume last month of about $40 billion. Something like $6 billion of that was Hype, and it's grown. I mean, the month before it was 3, and then it was 1. Like, it's come in the last couple of months out of nowhere, and our large institutional traders are trading there. There's unprecedented demand for these DEXs. And it just makes sense because the rules are a little bit more transparent. They're not fully transparent. There's still some things where you kind of have to trust them. I think it's a bit of a misnomer that all these platforms are like fully trustless. Like, there's still ultimately like centralized strategies and liquidations. And actually Jeff, the Hyperliquid guy, went out on Twitter and had to defend himself because there was, the Hyperliquid vault made $40 million. And ultimately my point is there's no perfect solution for this. That said, they did do pretty well, and I think clients ultimately were pretty happy with their performance.
Yeah, and do you think we're out of the woods? I mean, obviously, Trump tweeted that they're fine with Xi Jinping, and the China kind of like, they're de-escalating. Realistically, like one more tweet, and we're back to
this
seeing
happened
coins
before. I mean, I forgot when. I mean, look, I've been in crypto 7 years, or more than that, 8. And it's happened before. Like, Solana went from 240 down to 180. Like, those swings do happen. I think this time it was just a perfect storm of low liquidity, and the thing swung way further than it should have. And then hopefully now after that, at least Binance and some of the centralized exchanges will have better guardrails in place, just like I talked about with that mark price that smooths out. If you look at traditional exchanges like the NASDAQ, they have full-on circuit breakers where if it moves a certain percent, they'll shut the whole thing down. I think that's too aggressive. I think a lot of crypto people think that's too aggressive. But if you look at something like Bybit, they already have smoothing. And I think you're going to see more exchanges do that to prevent like unnecessary liquidations.
100%. And I think we've mentioned Binance about 10 times already. So let's jump into one of the biggest controversies of the week. What do you think of the CZ Binance beef with Twitter as a whole. It seems like everyone's against them this week. There's almost like a revolution happening against centralized exchanges as a result, and Coinbase, who have taken a much more decentralized long-term approach and have a clear vision they're communicating to the public, have gained a lot of popularity as a result. What's your take on it?
I mean, look, CZ's no fool. He's a smart guy, right? That's why he launched Aster. I think he saw this coming. I think everyone saw that coming. You look at Bybit has a DEX, Binance has a DEX. All these people have DEXs. Coinbase has Base. Like, ultimately, I think the smart exchange groups are going to diversify and have all of these different products, and they're going to find a way to make money as a DEX, in DeFi, as a lender, as whatever. The ones that are not going to win are going to be the ones that stay with the, kind of old legacy centralized only model, and then they're going to get outcompeted, right? But ultimately, like, if you're a smart conglomerate in any industry, you're going to diversify your sources of revenue, and I think that's what these exchange groups are doing.
And the weird thing for me is, like, CZ is being slated online, but I mean, he has been the biggest advocate for decentralized exchanges for the longest amount of time. Like, he's always pushed for the fact that eventually Binance will end up being a DEX, and as you said, he pushed Aster.
Yeah.
There's been some controversy around Aster, but
Yeah.
he's he's getting some undue bad press, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's crypto Twitter, right? Everyone got
sure.
bad press. The hyperliquid guys got bad press. Bybit got bad press. Pretty much everyone has gotten bad press, and I just think it's going to continue to happen. But ultimately, he has a slice of the DEX market as well. So,
And I mean, out of this surprise listing of BNB on Coinbase, what do you think of that?
I don't know.
That came out of nowhere.
I think ultimately these exchanges need to make money, right? And they're seeing this asset as a top 10 asset, or top whatever it is now. Was it 5? I haven't even looked. It's such a huge asset. They know they're going to make fees on it, and so they're going to list it.
That flips XRP. Like, that's insane already. I mean, XRP on the brink of getting ETFs, on the brink getting maybe an ICO, IPO. And it flipped it. I mean, BNB is one of the biggest assets at the moment. So much hype around the ecosystem. I do think, like, a lot of it was just they were kind of guilted into it. I'm not sure if you saw a lot of the posts on crypto Twitter. It was kind of like a lot of the conversations were around the fact that everyone, Coinbase advertised it there, the exchange for everyone, and for some reason they didn't have the fourth or the
Exactly.
We'll have a look at it in a second.
It's just like too big to ignore, right?
Exactly. You can't ignore the fourth biggest crypto market cap chain and token. I think we're going to see this more and more as Coinbase have done a very good job of positioning themselves over the past year. So have Binance. Of course, there's a lot of competition that arises out of that. There's also going to be more collaboration, right? And I don't think we're going to see an industry kind of, as fragmented as we have in the past. And the war between centralized exchanges, at the end of the day, if it does move to decentralized format, it's not going to be what we're used to with big banks competing in TradFi. Cool. Some other top developments. I spoke a lot about Polymarket last week. Obviously, they've raised a ridiculous amount of money, and it's super exciting. I'm not sure about what the most exciting use cases were for you when you first got into crypto, but prediction markets were one of the things I started reading about back in 2019, and it's really cool to see it finally come through. This week, Kalshi just announced a $300 million raise as well.
Wow.
So they're kind of keeping up, tit for tat with Polymarket. Not quite. It's still about $2-3 billion short in funding, but keeping up at least. Do you have a particular view on prediction markets?
I mean, I think it's good. I think ultimately, because Polymarket is bringing cash into the crypto economy, there are some people that have bet on Polymarket that wouldn't necessarily just be crypto holders. It's a great use case for crypto, right? And it brings more assets into crypto now that, because Coinbase invested and they've been in the news, new people are learning about this thing. And it's ultimately just another use case to increase the overall market cap of crypto. And I think we're going to see more and more companies doing that in different sectors of the real economy, bringing assets into crypto.
No, 100%. And I think it's been one of the most kind of like successful apps in terms of mass adoption, right? I was speaking to someone yesterday. They were saying the opportunity now is for these more niche prediction markets. For example, they were saying like cricket's a huge market where you can't really interact with it in many ways within India, in terms of betting, in terms of predictions, and creating a cricket prediction markets would be a huge opportunity. And now I think we're going to see more and more of those kind of like niche use cases for prediction markets pop up. I know Zero G and a bunch of others are positioning themselves for the AI prediction markets as well. But I'm super excited to see what comes of that. Another big thing that happened recently, and I think it's kind of crazy what we're seeing with the US in terms of the amount of regulation and crackdown on the illegal sides of the industry. They have seized 127,271 Bitcoin. That's $14.2 billion of Bitcoin, which now they get to just hold in their treasury.
Yeah.
It's just added to the wealth of the United States.
Not like Germany, right?
No, yeah.
Those guys. I mean, what did they buy? They sold all that Bitcoin at like less than 30K, and they're probably kicking themselves. I mean,
100%.
You
Yeah,
know?
imagine.
imagine. It's just. Oh. I mean, I sold a little bit at 30 to buy a house, but not all of it. You know, like come on.
You need a house.
You need a house. Yeah.
No, but 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the US is now one. I mean, they just have a ridiculous amount of Bitcoin across their whole
Yeah.
treasury, and I think they position themselves pretty well. And it's kind of
Yeah.
there are positives to it, right? It means institutional adoption and government adoption is happening. It's here. Like they can't go back now. On the other side, there's kind of like a huge centralization risk, right? So if they wanted to dump the price of Bitcoin to very near zero, they very well could with the amount that they hold. Do you have any concerns around that in terms of centralization?
I don't. I think that because in principle the United States government has agreed to a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I just don't see them dumping that all on the market. That said, even if they decided they wanted to sell it in a future, future administration, they would do it on the OTC market, and it wouldn't necessarily hit the public market right away, and that's not going to be for quite a while at this point. But ultimately, we've kind of seen it before. When the Germans did it last, they moved the market down 10%. Or something like that for whatever size it was, tens of thousands of Bitcoin. And then there was a big Bitcoin order that was done. It was in the news of an original Satoshi era seller, and the market didn't move. I mean, no one really noticed anything. It was almost the same size. So I think the markets are getting more liquid. I think there's more people willing to buy in blocks, and I don't think the U.S. government is going to be selling anytime soon.
Interesting, yeah. I'm not sure if you saw as well. There was a big movement on Polymarket about, you mentioned Satoshi. The odds of Satoshi moving or doing a Bitcoin transfer this year has increased to 15% according to Polymarket.
Really?
Yeah, people were starting to rumor that he's coming back and he's going to make a big move. And obviously, there's a lot of people who've spoken about the risk of, if he does come back and if he decides, he's got a huge amount of the overall supply and could have a huge impact on the markets. What's your prediction? Do you think Satoshi's coming back?
If Satoshi was accessible. And obviously, they're a smart guy or group or whatever. I mean, the smart thing to do would be to sell it in a block to a sovereign like wealth fund and do it quietly.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they could find buyers for a bunch of it. I don't think it would benefit them to try to sell it piecemeal, because obviously then that would be catastrophic for the market.
True. And kind of random question, but do you have an idea of who Satoshi is? Everyone has their own theory.
I don't know. I don't like to guess on it. Who knows?
I mean, it's kind of crazy to me that everyone thinks it's like one individual. When
Yeah, it's a group. I think it's a group. I would say that. Yeah.
I mean, there's no way. Like these L1s, they raised like 220 million to build a chain now. There's no way he just typed this all up and by himself in 2012. Yeah, there's definitely a group behind this, right?
I think it was a group. Yeah.
And I think there have been a few people who've kind of like claimed that, and people who claim they're Satoshi. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But cool. Moving on to, in terms of the rest of the crypto market, what's got you excited this week? What do you think is going to perform well over the next week? What do you think is going to over the next few months as well?
I mean, we said it earlier. I think these perp dexes are going to continue to outperform. We just integrated with another dex, the big one that's doing an airdrop where the price is predicted to be crazy on the OTC markets of their token, and people are already farming and doing tons of volume there to make points. I think these new dexes are going to rival the centralized exchanges in terms of scale, at least for trading perpetuals. And so I think the market structure is going to evolve considerably, and it's going to be, better. Ultimately, I think long term it's going to be better for people because it's going to be more transparent in terms of the rules and whatnot. I think that's going to be a huge trend.
And for the audience, you mind explaining exactly how you interact with these X's?
Yeah, so Hyperliquid, if you guys haven't heard of it, is a perpetual future DEX. It's very similar to the core offering of Binance in terms of what you can do. And so basically, rather than having to sign up and KYC with an exchange, you can log in with your MetaMask wallet or Phantom or whatever. They support multi-chain deposits. But more or less, the rules are transparent in terms of who gets liquidated, what the leverage ratios are, what happens. Whereas with a centralized exchange like Binance, you never really know exactly what's going on under the hood. And so they're doing, I mean, they were doing $10 billion a day. They were doing, you know, when Binance was doing 100, 150. And so CoinRoutes, our business, is actually allowing people to trade across all of the exchanges, whether it's centralized or decentralized, and provide a unified view of the market. And so one day you might want to trade on Hyperliquid, the next day you might trade on Binance, or et cetera, and you can move your positions around. And so a lot of our clients are doing that, where they're moving from exchange to exchange depending on market conditions.
Awesome. Cool. Well, very quickly, we're going to look at what's going on across the markets. I mean, obviously, everything is looking horrible, but there have been a few performers over the past week. You mentioned Bitensor. What's your take on Bitensor?
Everyone's talking about it now. I honestly, like, who knows? You never know how far these things can run, right? Especially with AI, when AI is involved, like, you really never know.
It's kind of a perfect storm, like you mentioned earlier. Like you broke really two hyped words together: AI, Web3. No one really knows how they interact yet, and I think there's more and more movement from decentralized AI front. I think there's a lot of people working within the DeFi AI front, but the kind of use cases are still being discovered, and it's interesting that, you know, coins like Bitensor are doing really well, because I don't think most people know exactly what they do.
I don't think anyone really knows what they do.
I think they'll, I guess we'll see over the next few months. Another thing that's done really well is Zcash. I think there's been a big movement around privacy, and I think it's crazy that it's taken this long for the privacy kind of meta to take place. I mean, it's coinciding because institutions are starting to adopt, and institutions don't necessarily want everyone to know what they're doing. Zcash has done very well as a result of that, and been an outperformer in otherwise pretty dark markets. I know there are a few kind of other privacy protocols happening. Are there any that you're excited about?
So I just want to make a point. It is surprising. It's not that surprising to me that this thing has done well recently, the privacy coins, but a lot of these regulatory regimes that are coming out that are allowing institutions to access coins have specifically banned privacy coins in their listing policy. Especially, I think in the UAE, a lot of the regulators have banned them, and in other regulatory regimes, it's similar. And so that's meant that this has been only a retail-only market. The institutions can't buy or sell or even speculate on it. And so that means those privacy coins are kind of less correlated, I would say, than the other long tail of crypto assets that people are comfortable trading. And so it's a bit different. So it's a bit interesting to see how it develops. But ultimately, yeah, obviously, there's a use case for these privacy coins. No,
super interesting. And another thing that we mentioned before the show was we were talking about gold. Gold has outperformed Bitcoin over the past year. Like it's it's supposedly a bull run, so I don't know what we're doing here. Two of the biggest movers this week, gold, tokenized gold. And I know Ethereum Foundation and a bunch of the other chains have kind of like started trying to position themselves as the chain for tokenized gold. Super hot markets. What's your take on tokenized gold? Obviously, there's cool angles with yield on the gold that you're staking. What's your position
I think
on that?
like honestly, I think that there's a huge market for paper gold in the ETF market. Most of people that are buying gold nowadays are buying it. They're not buying like physical gold bars. They're going and buying ETFs, and I don't know how many billions are in. It's a large, many billions, like significantly larger, orders of magnitude more than what there are in crypto. You can't really get yield on that gold when they're in ETFs for various like regulatory considerations. And so I think tokenized gold does have a way to rapidly grow, at least a 10x from here in terms of market cap, looking at what these things are capitalized at. Because you can use them in DeFi as collateral, because you can lend them out, because if you're a really large institution, you can go and probably figure out a way to redeem to the underlying, whereas in the ETF market, it's very hard to actually do a create redeem. As any institution, you have to be basically an authorized participant, and it's very difficult. So I think because of all these reasons, the tokenized gold market will grow considerably.
Awesome. No, that's really interesting to hear. I know a bunch of people I know here are working within that space at the moment, because it's, I mean, when an asset performs as well as gold has in the past year, everyone starts paying attention, and it's the possibility of earning 4 or 5% on your already really well-performing assets. Like it's a really cool opportunity. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about BTC-Fi as a product. It's something that's been kind of underexplored, but earning yield on your Bitcoin, that's a huge opportunity as well. I think there's a $100 billion opportunity there. Cool. We're getting towards the end of the show, so we'll go into our views of what's happening within GCC. So there's been a lot of cool things happening within the UAE. UAE is obviously one of the most crypto-friendly places. Yesterday, Zero G, the AI Layer 1, had their first ever meetup, community meetup within Dubai. And it's something that we're seeing more and more of, these large Layer 1s who have raised ridiculous amounts of money, starting to establish hubs within the UAE. Why do you think this is happening?
Yeah, so we moved out here about 2 years ago and set up an office, and we're able to bring over developers and salespeople and really a whole business here. And it was extremely easy compared to other offshore jurisdictions. So we tried to set up in Europe for years. We were trying to do that, and I'll never forget, the lawyer wanted me to sign something, and I said, okay, great, like send me a DocuSign. He said, no, you have to fly to Spain to the notary and sign this document. And I was like, are you serious? And he was like, oh, no, yeah. Like, it is such a mess in Europe right now, that to find an offshore jurisdiction as, you know, a global company that allows you to set up and get visas for people and get access to banking and financial services and regulation, et cetera, it's very difficult. And I think the UAE is really leading the way in that.
100%. And in general, I mean, they position themselves super well in terms of the regulatory aspects of the business as well. Like they're very forward looking, and I think that's why so many people are excited. So when we speak to, you know, Ethereum Foundation, when we speak to BNB, but the UAE government has just acquired a huge stake in Binance. These are huge moves that are happening, and really, I saw a tweet the other day. It was interesting. They were saying UAE now is kind of like New York, what was in the 1920s, 1930s, and what we're going to see in the 1950s is this huge boom in the Middle East. Obviously, it's kind of like the stepping stone between Europe, Asia. It's the center of the world, right?
Yeah.
You guys have obviously established your business here.
Yeah.
Is there something that's getting you very excited about the UAE as a region or a country in the next
10,
I
20
mean, you
years?
said
it. I forgot the quote, but what is it? Like 80% of the world is accessible within an 8-hour flight.
Yeah.
We have people and clients in Asia. We just came back from Token 2049 with CoinRoutes, and that was, you know, an amazing opportunity to meet all our clients there. And then I was able to fly back here pretty easily and go to work the next day. Whereas if I had to go back from America all the way to Asia and to Europe, it's just a mess. So being in the middle of the world definitely helps. I would also say the ease of banking. We're able to move money through both the stablecoin payment system and even the legacy banking system for clients that don't take crypto is really great. You have, you know, the regulatory regime that allows you to get licenses as a crypto service provider. And then the fact that you can attract global talent has been really good, because we can get visas for people. We can get pretty much anyone in the country in a couple of weeks, whereas we, you know, are sponsoring visas in the US, and it's a nightmare. I mean, the amount of money, and we did it in the UK, and it was, you know, 6-month process, tens of thousands of dollars per person. And it's even more expensive in the US. So that being able to do that, being able to really be agile in terms of what staff is moving where as a global business with over 50 employees has been extremely helpful.
That's crazy. We just mentioned about the UK. I lived in England, in London, for about 16 years, and it's really interesting to see like the amount of people. Like every time you go back to London, everyone's talking about moving out to Dubai.
Yeah,
it's like something like 10,000 millionaires left the UK last year. 8,000 of them have gone to Dubai.
Yeah. We just bought a company, actually. So CoinRoutes just acquired a UK business. It's a portfolio management software, and basically it was like closing the deal has been, you know, just the amount of paperwork and whatnot compared to doing business in Dubai. It's definitely a lot more. It's definitely more convoluted.
No, awesome. Yeah. Cool. I think we're getting towards the end of the show, so we'd love to just give you the floor in terms of anything you want to talk about CoinRoutes, so any exciting kind of updates in the pipeline for you guys over the next few months.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned earlier, we just bought a company, a portfolio management system. This system really helps people see their risk across exchanges, so they can both do their trading and calculate their P&L across exchanges. For most traders, they have to like log into each exchange and figure out what their P&L is, how much risk they have, how to do risk limits. If you have multiple traders at a hedge fund, then you have 10 traders, you need to give them different risk limits, et cetera. We allow you now to do that all from one platform. That's been really exciting. It's our first acquisition.
That's awesome. And are you guys expanding from the UAE, or is this going to be your home for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, so we have office in Miami, New York, Dubai. We're doing London. We have like 5 people in London, but we're growing that. We're building an office, and then the next office we're going to open is Hong Kong.
I was just going to ask, any plans for Asia? And
Yeah. We have a
Kong?
couple people in Singapore, but we need to go to Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong is really taking off as a market for crypto trading.
100%, yeah. And they've recovered really well from the past few years where they faced some issues, and now everyone's getting excited about Hong Kong.
It's exciting. No, it's cool. There's a lot going on out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ian. Really excited to have you on. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Crypto Code by ICN.live.
Thanks for having me.